welcome to today's webinar on witnessing production notices. My name is Belinda and I'm the Senior Community Engagement Officer here at the JP branch. Today you're going to learn a little bit more about these Queensland Police documents and your role as a Justice of the Peace qualified when you are presented with a production notice application before issuing the production notice itself. Are you ready? Let's begin. Witnessing production notices is a duty of a Justice of the Peace qualified. So if you aren't a Justice of the Peace qualified, I'm sure you're still going to find this webinar very informative, and you may even wish to consider upgrading your appointment. So just to recap, the duties today on this webinar are for a Justice of the Peace qualified, or of course if you hold Justice of the Peace Magistrates Court appointment. Let's move on. What is a production notice? A production notice is a physical document authorising a Queensland police officer to obtain stated documents from a cash dealer. Okay, so on screen is a visual representation. The production notice, once issued by a Justice of the Peace qualified, it is given back to the police officer who then gives it to the cash dealer. Then the cash dealer must produce those stated documents by a specific time. And I will go over that later in the webinar, but that specific time is not legislative. So the police officer nominates the time and place where the documents are to be produced. So when you are presented with a production notice application, you can only issue the actual notice if you are satisfied the police officer has provided reasonable grounds for suspecting the cash dealer holds documents that may be evidence of an offence. Okay, and another important thing is the cash dealer cannot be party to the suspected offence. Now, why would police seek a production notice? So police have a reasonable suspicion that an offence has been committed and perhaps, let's just say, stolen evidence, and it's been sold on to let's say a car dealer, and the police need to seize documents from that transaction to prove that an offence has taken place. Okay? So if the police officer reasonably suspects a cash dealer holds documentation that is evidence of the commission of an offence by someone else, or confiscation-related evidence in relation to a confiscation-related activity involving someone else, or a serious drug offender confiscation order-related evidence. Now, those two last terms are quite a mouthful, and I will explain to you shortly what that exactly means. But if a police officer suspects that, yes, an offence has taken place, they can, instead of applying for a search warrant, apply to a justice or a magistrate for the issue of a production notice, which, as I said, requires a cash dealer to produce those documents stated in the document itself. But what exactly is a cash dealer? I can hear you all asking that question. Okay, under the Commonwealth Financial Transaction Reports Act 1988, the definition of cash dealer is very broad, but it includes, and it isn't limited to, a financial institution, that's a bank, a credit union, a body corporate, an insurer, a payroll delivery service, a casino, or even your local bookie. Okay. If you do wish to read the complete definition of a cash dealer, you can find it in that legislation displaying on your screen there. Okay, so it's in Schedule 3, the interpretation of the Commonwealth Financial Transactions Report Act 1988. So now you know what the production notice is and why a police would issue a production notice, and you know who a cash dealer is. Let's see what powers the police have under a production notice. So when a cash dealer is given a production notice, the police are authorised under the Police Power and Responsibilities Act to inspect the document, take extracts, make copies, or they can even seize the document. Okay, and that's under section 184 of the PPRA if you wanted to have a look at that. But that's the police power the production notice gives that officer. Now, I'm just going to jump back to those two terms that we spoke about briefly, confiscation-related evidence and the serious drug offender confiscation order. The reason I'm just going to go over these terms is that they may appear on the production notice because it is a templated document from an internal form system of the Queensland Police Service. And it is good to be aware of these terms. And we've also had queries at previous workshops from attendees, what is confiscation-related evidence? Or what's SDOCO mean? I'm going to explain those terms now, but I would like to point out that it's not your role as a JP to determine if the documents requested pertain to either a confiscation-related evidence or a serious drug offender confiscation order. That's the role of the police, okay? So confiscation-related evidence basically means something that has been derived directly or indirectly from criminal activity, okay? So it's been used in committing an offence, even if it was lawfully acquired, okay? Another example could be confiscation-related evidence derived from serious drug offending, okay? Or even individuals who are unable to explain how they lawfully acquired their wealth. Okay. And the act that authorises this is the Criminal Proceeds Confiscation Act 2002. And basically, it just deters and prevents crime by attacking its profitability and removing funding for further criminal activity. Okay, so an example of this is someone who's lawfully purchased or acquired a vehicle, and then unfortunately through investigations the police have discovered that even though that vehicle was lawfully obtained by the new owner, it actually was unlawfully disposed of during maybe a serious criminal activity, which is usually an indictable offence. So the police would need to seize those documents from wherever that car was purchased from that cash dealer to prove how the car was disposed of or how the car was lawfully acquired. Now, it is very similar with the serious drug offender confiscation order. Again, it allows the state to issue an order to dispose of property, okay? But the person has to be charged with a qualifying drug-related offence, okay? And those serious drug-related offences include trafficking and supplying in dangerous drugs, receiving or possessing property obtained from trafficking or supplying drugs, and then also producing dangerous drugs. So these offences are known as serious drug offences, and when a person is charged with one of these offences, the court issues a restraining order, and then the property in question is held by the state. Now, if that person is convicted of that serious drug offence, then a serious drug offender confiscation order is issued and the property is then forfeited and sold by the state. Okay. Now, you all know that we've got a new handbook, and however, the introduction or the change of the powers for a Justice of the Peace qualified to issue a production notice came out after the handbook was published. So unfortunately, there is not a section at this point in time in your handbook on police production notices, but we have this fantastic resource. It's your technical bulletin, okay? And it details the information, and it also has a witnessing checklist on what you need to consider when issuing a production notice. So I'm not going to read this publication word for word, but rather in your own time, if you just go onto our webpage there and locate that publication, and you can actually, once you print it out, insert it into the corresponding section in your handbook, because that's why a handbook has been made with the hole punches, so you can actually add or you can make the handbook work for you better. Right, now we're going to actually move on and have a look at the actual production notice application and production notice. So those who are familiar with search and arrest warrant applications, you'll see that it is quite there's two parts. You've got your application and then the notice itself. Okay, so your application tells a story, basically, and the production notice is then issued back to the officer and given to the cash dealer. Okay. So it is an approved form, and on the application, the applicant officer must swear or affirm the contents contained in the production notice. And you may wish to immediately put the officer on oath or affirmation as soon as they attend, because then that way, anything that the officer discloses verbally or in writing during your witnessing transaction can still be held part of the application process, and more importantly, your decision-making process. So when you're asked to issue a production notice, you should ask the police applicant officer for some form of identification. That's especially if they're plain clothes. Immediately place them on oath or affirmation. Now, you do need to read this application carefully, because you have to ensure that they have proven a reasonable suspicion that an offence has been committed, and those documents will provide evidence of that offence. Then you need to check that it's got the applicant's name, their registered number and station, a brief description of the offence it relates to, preferably with the section of the authorising act. Okay, the nature of the document sought, including the name of the cash dealer, and then the story or the information or evidence relied upon to support that officer's suspicion that the documents, indeed with the cash dealer, form part of evidence for a commission of an offence. And then, as I mentioned at the very beginning, a statement on there which indicates that the cash dealer is not party to the offence. And one other thing that the legislation does require, if police have issued a production notice in the past year to that same cash dealer, they have to disclose the full history of any previous notices. Okay. Now, don't be afraid. You can ask questions at any time. That's your role. You need to confirm that you understand the evidence put before you or the reasonable suspicion. If you are not familiar with the section of the Act that the offence has been committed, ask the police officer to show you. There's nothing wrong with that. And if you aren't satisfied that the production notice is justified, then don't go ahead and witness it. But if you are satisfied that the production notice is justified, you then have the applicant officer sign the application, reminding them that they're still under oath, and then you witness the applicant's signature by signing and affixing your seal of office and registration number on both the application and the notice. Okay. As with the search and arrest warrant application, that remains with you. That forms part of your record keeping. Okay, so please keep that in a safe place so you can write on that application for a production notice if you had made additional notes or conversation during the witnessing transaction. On your screen now is a sample application for a production notice, and unfortunately, no, we can't provide copies of this. This is purely for today's webinar and training and personal use only, just to give you some familiarity with the document if you're not familiar with the application itself. So you can see here that this application was made in Innisfail, and here's the applicant officer here, Jonathan David Brown, and Jonathan's put his rank, registration, and the station he's from. The name of the cash dealer, as mentioned, should be there. And then, the Criminal Code Act. So at this point in time, ABC Bank is stating that, Jonathan is stating that ABC Bank holds documents that does provide evidence for a suspicion of an offence, which in this case is stealing. So under the Criminal Code Act 1899 and Section 398, is the offence. Now, as I mentioned, if you're not familiar with that act or that offence, ask the police officer to show you. And if they have not put the section in, they can also do that at the interview. That's not a problem. So then you've got the story here, okay? And it goes over a few pages. In this instance, in this sample, a couple have returned from an overseas holiday and they had currency in other denominations, and I think it was Canadian and USD, so American dollars. And because of the public holidays, they kept it in a safe place in their house. But in fact, the money was stolen from somebody who was residing in the house, and the police had a reasonable suspicion that that person did actually steal the money, and they are asking ABC Bank for the transactions for that person's account, because you can see here that they've purchased a number of expensive items, and because the person is unemployed and on Centrelink and has a previous criminal history, the police have formed a reasonable suspicion that it's more than likely that this person was responsible for the alleged offence. Okay. You can see here that then the justice has witnessed the officer's signature, inserted the date, and then their signature and date again, and their seal of office. And this is the actual notice. Okay, so the justice was satisfied that the police officer was able to provide reasonable suspicion for a commission of an offence and went ahead and issued the production notice. Now, you'll see here that this one actually does ask for the justice's name. Okay, so you do actually have to insert your name here as the witness. Okay, and then obviously select your office of appointment. And then again, the offence will be here and what the documents the police officer is looking for. So in this instance, bank statements of one Shady Soul ABC account, and then all those details there, and then the dates. You can see here that this is the evidence of the commission of an offence for, okay, and the forfeiture proceeding has been crossed out. There's that statement that I said it must actually state as well, the cash dealer is not party to the offence. And this is the section that you may be presented where it's left blanked. Okay, and the police officer may be asking you to insert the time, date and location. At the very beginning of the webinar, I mentioned that it is not legislated anywhere, the time frame. So it is up to the discretion, and it's up to the police officer to insert that time and date and the place where those documents are to be produced. So again, we've got our justice's signature there and their seal of office. And once you're satisfied that there is evidence of a commission of an offence and you are going to issue the notice, as with any police search warrants and arrest warrants, the use of your seal of office is mandatory. Okay, so under section 31 of the Justices of the Peace Act, Justices of the Peace and Commissioner for Declarations Act, 1991, if you are issuing a summons or a warrant of any description, you are to insert your seal of office, complete with your registration, immediately beneath, beside or close to your signature. Okay. And you can see here there's two examples. Please don't place your seal of office over your signature. Place it immediately beneath, like in this example, or immediately adjacent. And as I mentioned, there's a section there that does have that list, that requirement for the use of your seal of office. Finally, we're just going to touch on record keeping. As I mentioned, the application is is yours to keep. That's if you issue the production notice application. If you don't issue that notice, then you need to return it to the applicant officer and make a note in your logbook. So on screen now is our logbook that you can order from our JP online shop, or you can even download it for free. So what I like about our logbook is that on the inside it has a summary of the general witnessing steps, things to bear in mind, and then obviously your oaths and affirmations. So you've always got that handy. Now here's an example of keeping records of witnessing transactions. However you decide to record your witnessing, it's best practice not to record any personal identifying particulars. Okay, that includes driver license numbers and passport numbers. All right, you can see here our resident JP Olive. She's just put the date, the type of document witnessed. So in this case, statutory declaration, name of the person presenting the document, and the Queensland driver's license and the expiry date. And you can see here that Olive's been a little busy. And on this day, the 10th of the 1st, she issued a production notice. And you can see here she's just put see application dated 10th of the 1st, 2019. So that's fine because all that information is contained in the application. When you are keeping records, please remember to keep it in a safe and secure place, limiting access to anyone else. And the reason why it's good to keep records is that we may contact you from time to time just to confirm any documents that you may have witnessed. So further reading, if you would like to find out a little bit more about production notices or police powers or criminal offences, you can go online here. So the relevant Queensland legislation is on the screen. There's also links below the webinar on YouTube. You can go there. And the relevant Commonwealth legislation that defines the definition of a cash dealer is that Financial Transaction Reports Act 1988. And finally, before we go, I'd just like to say thank you again for watching today. I hope you found this short and sharp webinar. I was able to answer any questions that you may have about Queensland Police production notices. If you're ever in doubt about production notices or any documents that you're asked to witness, please get in contact with us. We're here to help, and your number's on the screen or even our email address. We're always welcome to hear from you. Okay, then have a lovely day and we'll see you next time. Bye.